Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Phil Washington, out of Denver, Colorado, where I'm the Assistant General Manager there for administration. And I always like to say I'm from the South Side of Chicago, too. And so I'm a South Side of Chicago guy. It's a great morning, and as the old folks used to say, it's great to wake up on this side of heaven. And it's just wonderful being here with the Comto family, because this is a family. When I come to the Comto conferences, I love to see my extended family and talk to folks. And we had a great conversation last night with some fellas over dinner. And we talked about some of the things that's probably going to be talked about here today. The transportation paradox. When you talk about fuel prices, when you talk about sales tax shortfalls, when you talk about all these things, we got to find a solution to this transportation paradox. When you talk about transit and increased ridership, and then you talk about fare box revenues and all of that kind of thing, we got to do something. So I'm anxious to hear from our panel here this morning and see where they're coming from and see what we need to do. How do we fit in as Comto, because there's a role for us to play also. Now, I want to introduce the mayor of this great city, but before I do, I want to, again, just thank Roscoe Brown and the Indiana or the Indianapolis chapter for this great conference they put on. And I will add, now I mentioned I'm from Denver, of course, you know, I got to talk a little bit of trash because we are, again, the 2008 Transit Agency of the Year, the second time in 5 years. So we kicking it out in Denver, and I'm sure Bill Millar might give us some props when he gets up here. So I'm actually, there you go, there you go. You know the deal. Mayor Gregory Ballard, I talked to him just a little bit, and I bet you he never knew or never anticipated that an Army guy would be introducing him. He's a Marine Corps guy. On November 6, 2007, Gregory A. Ballard was elected as the 48th mayor of Indianapolis. A native Hoosier, Mayor Ballard was raised on the east side of Indianapolis and is a proud graduate of Cathedral High School. After earning his undergraduate degree in economics from Indiana University, Mayor Ballard entered the United States Marine Corps. During his time in the Marines, he served in the Persian Gulf War and was awarded the Legion of Merit. He retired as a lieutenant colonel after 23 years service. After leaving the Marine Corps, Mayor Ballard successfully transitioned to the corporate world. He also is the author of the Ballard Rules Small Unit Leadership. So let's give the mayor a Comto welcome. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thanks, Phil, for that nice introduction. And unfortunately, there really are too many Army people around doing introductions, no question about that. But I do want to welcome you to Indianapolis, and I want to thank Shirley and Julie, actually, for making the decision to come here to Indianapolis. As I've been hearing, and I hear actually when I address conventions, we're a very hospitable city. These are nice people out here in this city, and they'll help you out. They'll receive you warmly, as I'm sure you know. I also want to single out, I didn't see him this morning yet, but I know he was here last night, Gil Holmes, who just left us as the head of Indigo here in town. He's a terrific man. And I also want to recognize Roscoe Brown, who is your local chapter, so I appreciate that very much. I've seen the schedule. That's a healthy schedule you have. Right. That's good. That's a healthy schedule, and I also saw your speakers, which is a tremendous group of speakers, and I tell you, most conferences don't have that quality of speakers coming in, so I applaud you for that, and I applaud you for the camaraderie and the training, really, that you're giving each other. And I really am honored that you chose Indianapolis. I like your phrase, create a level playing field. Create a level playing field. I really like that phrase quite a bit because when I became the mayor just a few months ago, we we created the position of Director of Minority Business Development, whose main job is to create a level playing field here in the city of Indianapolis for everybody, and that's what we're certainly trying to do. You'll notice that our city, and particularly our downtown, has a lot to offer, and we're certainly pleased to showcase that to all of you here visiting. I'd like to tell people, many of you know, we just got the Super Bowl for 2012, which is nice. But people always ask me, gee, that's good, or pat me on the back, and some people who worked last year on the bid, we pat them on the back. But the fact is, this city was really started to build up about 40 years ago. And there's been a lot of visionaries in this city who made this downtown what it is today. And all the way back to, I'm sure you know Senator Lugar, but back in the day, he was Mayor Lugar here for the city of Indianapolis, and that's when all of the transformation started here in Indianapolis back in the late 60s and early 70s. But you can see the results of it here, and your hotel is perfectly located. This is a very historic building. You're just steps away from so many great things. The convention center, the zoo, the state park, White River State Park, and the canal, the Idle George Museum, which is really a classic Western art museum. I've had people come from California and tell me they've never seen a Western art museum like the Idle George. It's a truly historic building. And of course, please spend all your money at the Circle Center Mall and the restaurants. But I was telling Phil, I actually was a logistics officer in the Marine Corps primarily. And my brother actually owns a transportation company right here in town also. So I'm quite aware of your businesses. I'm quite aware of the challenges you're facing right now. And I'm facing some of that in the city right now with the gas prices, because we certainly didn't budget for $4 a gallon. But I really applaud you for coming here today. I love conventions who come together and like I say, not only share the camaraderie, but share the training, and you help each other get the job done. And I think that's very, very important, and I'm hoping that our city is providing that opportunity for you. So thank you very much.
Before I go on, I was just informed that we got a birthday in the house. And now I know, we all know Mr. Robert Prince. But today, we're not going to ask him how old he is. But Mr. Prince, would you stand up and just, yeah. Happy birthday, Bob Prince. Truly a legend in transportation, a mentor. You can call Bob up, talk to him in the strictest of confidence, and he will give you advice. And just want to thank you personally for being a great friend to folks like myself. Listen, we got a special thing on the agenda. Miss Gina Page is going to talk about African ancestry. Founded in 2003 by Dr. Rick Kittles and Gina Page, the Washington, D.C.-based company has helped over an estimated 100,000 people reconnect with their roots and their family tree. African ancestry is the world leader in tracing maternal and paternal linkages of African descent. With the industry's largest and most comprehensive database of over 25,000 indigenous African samples, African ancestry determines specific countries and more often than not, specific ethnic groups of origin with the highest level of detail, accuracy, and confidence. African ancestry is committed to providing a unique service to the African American community, working daily to improve the cultural, emotional, physical, spiritual, and economic well-being of people across the African diaspora. So at this time, Ms. Gina Page, would you come up? Welcome, Ms. Gina Page.
Good morning. Last night I was trying to figure out, now what exactly does minority transportation officials have to do with ancestry? But actually there are a lot of connections, and I think the real connection is that word connection. Yesterday I met a sister who's responsible for over 200 stations in New York City Transit, and I thought, you know, she's responsible for connecting people, making sure that people get to where they want to go, making sure they get there safely. And all of you do that, either with people or products or whatever it is. You are the core of making sure that we stay connected. And that's what African Ancestry is about. Our mission is to transform the way people view themselves and the way they view Africa by reconnecting us with our past. Are there any genealogists in the room? None? Wow, that's a first. Well, you're not genealogists, but you're certainly students of history and of life, and you know that as African Americans, we can use the traditional genealogy tools. We can talk to our elders, we can look in the family Bible, we can visit the archives and look at census records and try and recreate our family's history. But unfortunately, as African Americans, we're going to hit a brick wall because of the transatlantic slave trade. We weren't even recorded as people until the late 1860s, and so we can't always get back and find out, where was my family before the Middle Passage? Where was my family before the ships? And some people say, well, I'm American. It doesn't matter where my people were. But it really does matter, because knowing where you're from is extremely critical to knowing who you are. And all of us in this room have achieved a certain level of success, which is built on a strong sense of self-knowledge. But there's that one little piece that we don't have, and certainly that our children don't have. And so African Ancestry helps to bridge that gap between what we know about our families here or in the Caribbean or in Europe and where our families were prior to the slave trade. So it's a very simple process. About 4 to 6 weeks ago, we sent kits to Ms. DeLibro. Nice to meet you. I never really get to meet the people who take the test, and also to Ms. Cunningham. And inside the kit were just some swabs, like long Q-tips. They gently rubbed the inside of their cheeks. It didn't hurt, right? No. Painless, easy, quick. And then they return those swabs to us. And what happens is our lab sequences the DNA or unlocks the code of the DNA that each of them inherited from their mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother, all the way back. And we compared that DNA to a database of indigenous African lineages, and African Ancestry has the largest database of African lineages in the world. Did anyone see the PBS special, African American Lives? Okay, all right, now we're cooking. Well, African Ancestry, we provided those tests. So it was this same test that told Oprah that she shares ancestry with the Capelli people living in Liberia, or who told Dr. Maya Angelou that she shares ancestry with the Mende people in Cameroon. And so today, I get to do the best part of my job, which is to reveal the ancestries of Ms. DeLibro and Ms. Cunningham. Now, I was told that we should... Well, I should say, let me say this briefly. Sometimes people are nervous because we don't know what we're going to find. We can't guarantee that it's going to be African. It could come back. It could come back Native American, it could come back European, and on the maternal side, that generally doesn't happen. About 92% of the time, it comes back African, which is why when we do these kind of reveals, we focus on the maternal side. Now, on the paternal side, it's different. It only comes back African about 65% of the time, and the other 35% of the time, it's European. And that's just because of the history of the behavior of on the plantations. We'll leave it at that. But I just met you guys, so I'm going to keep it clean. Yeah. No, I know. So, but what I wanted to say, the reason I brought that up is because had it not been African, I would have notified them in advance, because it's very important psychologically that we don't spring that on you in front of all of your friends and colleagues for the first time. So, ladies, you can rest assured that your ancestry is African. But Ms. DeLibro, if you could come up first and I have
First
a,
time I've ever done a DNA, and you only did this with it, right?
that's it. Let me tell you while she's coming up that we actually have a contract that we won't share or sell any personal or genetic information. We take that very seriously, and we destroy all DNA once a result has been found. Ramonica, I'm going to go really quickly so you don't have to worry about the screen. So that's our commitment to you, and we're very serious about that. So do you have any ideas about where you may be from on your mother's side?
Well, I know that my mother and father were born over in Cabo Verde, which is the Cape Verde Islands, and a group of islands between Africa and Portugal. So that I know, and then they came over to the United States. Now my grandparents were born over there. So that's about all I know, and I've never been back there, so. Never been back to the Cape Verde Islands, so I speak a dialect of Portuguese, so I know that, but that's about it.
Okay. Well,
I thought you were going to tell me I was Irish, and I was like, whoa. With a name like DeLibro, that's not going to happen.
I would only tell you that over a drink. I wouldn't
Okay.
bring that to everybody. So the time frame of this analysis is anywhere from 500 to 10,000 years. So we're going much farther beyond your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and even their parents. And we found your ancestry on a little small island, so it's still relevant, off the coast of Equatorial Guinea. And interestingly enough, Equatorial Guinea was colonized by the Portuguese. But this island, Bioko Island, was not colonized. So you share ancestry with the Bubi people living on Bioko Island, a community that was never colonized by the Europeans. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, what I've given her is a results package that we give to everyone who takes our test. It contains a letter that explains the results, a printout of her DNA sequence. We only use a little tiny bit, 400 base pairs out of 3 billion. So the amount we used isn't significant for anything except for ancestry. We also included a certificate of ancestry, a map, and the African Ancestry Guide to West and Central Africa. So now she won't be paying attention through the rest of the meeting. She'll be reading about Bioko Island.
Were you able to confirm that there's royalty in her ancestry?
Oh, I don't need DNA to tell that there's royalty in her ancestry. That's obvious.
So I'm really a queen?
Absolutely. Julie Cunningham, will you please join me at the dais? Now, do you have any ideas about where your ancestry is on your mother's side? How far back can you go?
Cleveland.
That's outside of Cleveland.
Well, that makes it easy. We're gonna take. I got a little nervous when she started talking about Cape Verde and Africa, but
Actually, my grandfather was from Italy.
Okay. Her grandfather was from, now which grandfather? Your mother's father? Okay. Now, so her mother's father is from Italy. However, that won't show up in this test because we're tracing your mother, her mother, her mother, her mother. So nothing from men. There are no men involved in the results of this test. So we found your ancestry also on the coast of West Africa. And actually, this country, we find the majority of our results. The majority of the results come back from 2 countries, Nigeria, which is one, and Cameroon, which is the ancestry that you share, people living in Cameroon today. And you share ancestry with the Bamileke people. Bamileke, which were, we know that the Bamileke were leaders. We know that the Bamileke really worshiped the people that came before them in terms of the ancestors. And we also know that Bamileke women were very instrumental in the leadership of the community. So I'd like to congratulate you on finding your ancestry among the Bamileke in Cameroon. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. Like I said, this is the most fun part of my job, is getting to actually give people the results. I did bring test kits. I have an exhibit in the downstairs in the exhibit hall, and I have a special offer for you Comto members. So you're all welcome to have $50 off of the price of our test. And please come down and talk to me. It's kind of lonely back there in the back, but I'd be happy to answer your questions and talk more about what we do and how it can impact your lives. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now that was wonderful. We got a queen of transit, and we got a leader. So that explains. Yeah, we're on the move, and that explains, you know, where we're going, the lineage, connecting the dots. We had a speaker yesterday, and that brother from New Jersey talked about connecting the dots, and I think this is so relevant and so apropos. Thank you, Gina. That was wonderful, and I may stop down there and find out where I'm from. I think I'm connected to some royalty too. That's what the folks on the south side of Chicago told me anyway. I don't know. I want to introduce Ricky Smith, who's going to come up and do some introductions. Ricky Smith currently serves as the Director of the Department of Port Control for the City of Cleveland, and is responsible for overseeing the Cleveland airport system, including Cleveland Hopkins International and Burke Lakefront airports. He also serves as our first vice chair of the Comto Board of Directors. And if you know Ricky, unassuming, smooth, debonair, and just a really outstanding leader. We're very happy to have him on the Comto board. And let me have Ricky come up. Please give him a round of applause, please.
Phil started out introducing me, and then he lost track somehow and started thinking about someone else. I'm going to introduce Pete Ron. I think Pete Ron comes to us, at least his ancestry brings him to us from Lagos, Nigeria. So. Good to have you here, Pete. Okay. There were a lot of men involved in that study, by the way. No, actually, as the director of the Missouri Department of Transportation, Pete oversees the work of more than 6,000 employees who plan, build, and maintain the state's transportation system. This includes 32,000 miles of highways and the state's support of aviation, rail transit, and port systems. Pete assumed his position in September of 2004. At the national level, he is president of the American Association of Highway and Transportation Officials, AASHTO is what we refer to it as well as a member of its board of directors and chairman of its standing committee on highway traffic safety. AASHTO must have 230 committees. They have more committees than any other organization I'm aware of. He also serves on the executive committee of the Transportation Research Board, TRB, as well as its task force on accelerating innovation in the highway industry. From 1995 to 2002, he held the post of cabinet secretary in the New Mexico Department of Transportation. He is a very impatient man, does not follow instructions very well. But I will bring him to you anyway.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, actually, I've got a grandmother from Cleveland, so I thought, well, Julie and I can be related. That works. Well, good morning. I've got some very short remarks for you, and Phil asked for me to try to talk about the future of transportation in the United States and do it in 7 minutes or less. And so basically, if you all aren't depressed at the end of 7 minutes, I'd have to say either I didn't explain it very well or you don't understand, because it's pretty scary out there right now. I've been using the metaphor that I feel like we've been dealt a new hand of cards, and nobody's told us what game we're playing. I mean, we're seeing, our costs are rising for just about everything. I mean, fuel, steel, asphalt, concrete, it's all going up. Our infrastructure is wearing out, whether it's transit systems or our roads. Our costs of operating this have gone up, as I'm sure all of you know, with your own fuel costs. We at MoDOT use 11 million gallons of diesel fuel a year. So $1 rise, $11 million right off the bat. And we've had quite a tough winter in Missouri. It's, we had first the worst winter in probably 20 years. For many of you I know that are here from St. Louis and Kansas City, you can testify to that. We had first the snow, then the ice, then the snow, then the ice, then the tornadoes, then ice, then we had floods, and then we had an earthquake in Illinois that caused us to have to inspect our bridges on the eastern side of the state. And at that point I started joking that what else could be coming now except the frogs and the locust? And then I have to tell you, 2 weeks ago, we had a flood over by St. Louis, and we ended up having to shut down Highway 370 because the floods had driven the frogs up onto the road so thick that cars were sliding out of control from how slick the road was. And so now we've got a contingency plan for locust. I mean, that's the last. But we're seeing all of these problems, and at the national level, I don't see the leadership coming out to actually address the problems that are facing us. And it's not just a mode. It's not just transit. It's not just highways. It's across the board. Our transportation infrastructure has been allowed to crumble underneath our feet for a lack of investment for over 3 decades. Frankly, I believe as a generation we have squandered the inheritance that our parents and grandparents gave us. They gave us a transportation system that was bar none the best in the world. And we've allowed it to constrict and crumble, and today we see China and India investing hundreds of billions of dollars when we argue here in the United States about $10 billion increases. And I have to tell you, it's pretty discouraging, and I don't see the leadership that's going to resolve this issue because it's going to take political courage. Because frankly, as a nation, we still remain very wealthy. I just saw in the paper people were lining up 24 hours in advance around the block to buy the new iPhone. They're lining up to spend $200 on an iPhone that they then have to spend $100 a month to keep. And we're talking about investments of maybe a couple $100 a year to make sure that we remain economically competitive with the rest of the world. And there's something out of sync there. Now, I'm encouraged to see the organizations, though, that are coming together to try to cause this to happen. And I can tell you APTA and Bill Millar and Comto and Julie have been great leaders here in trying to bring together these organizations that which we all have, common transportation interests, so that we're not fighting each other. We're trying to find the common ground that we can hopefully get Congress to act on. But the idea that we're coming into an expiration next year of Safety Lou, and the fact that there will be a new president, there will be a new Congress, there still is no agreement on what this new bill should even look like. So the expectation is that this is going to be a long, drawn-out process for Congress to authorize a new program. And if history is an example, it's pretty discouraging. So we, as a transportation industry, have got to address this. We've got to be involved. We've got to actually take action individually, because someone else isn't going to solve this problem. It has to be us. We have to be involved to make this work. And I can't be here before you, though, without making a couple of comments about Comto and about Julie, because I have to tell you, in Missouri, we've had some great success, and I believe we're creating a new model for disadvantaged workers and creating opportunity within projects. And I think you all heard from Lester yesterday. Comto was a key ingredient of being able to make that happen, holding it together, because as you know, anytime you bring together a lot of disparate groups into around a table, it takes effort to make sure everybody stays at that table. And Comto has been the glue that's been holding this group together and producing the great results that we're seeing. And we know we're changing people's lives, because people that historically never would have had a chance to start a new career have that opportunity now on these projects. And it's exciting for me to see that occurring. You know, I need to bring this to a close because I know you have a lot more speakers. But I have to tell you that MoDOT owes Comto a great deal. I think Comto has a lot to offer other DOTs, and I think once we have the success of these two projects, one in Kansas City, one in St. Louis, and we're able to demonstrate how it's worked differently, how it's brought the community together, I believe it's something that can be replicated in a lot of states all over the country. And Comto should be very proud that it is a parent of that process. And again, we're very grateful for that. At the AASHTO level, I can tell you there's a great deal of appreciation for Julie and Comto and working with AASHTO as an organization. As a nation, we're going to have to work together on these transportation issues. They are serious. If we just let things happen, I can tell you that we are going to be unilaterally disarming ourselves in this competition that we now are going to be facing with China and India and Europe and even Russia. So this is important for the next generation and the generation after that, that we come to the forefront and that we demand that our political leaders take action and ensure that as a generation we pass on the same inheritance that we receive, and that we have in fact not just squandered what we've had because we've been too selfish to reinvest. So with that, thank you very much and the opportunity, and congratulations.
Thank you, Pete. Those were some great comments, and again, we kind of talked about this at dinner last night. Some of the things that Pete Ron touched on. I mean, these challenges and these changes must come from the grassroots level, individually, organizations like Comto. So again, thank you, Pete. We definitely have a challenge on our hands when you talk about this paradox and the transportation infrastructure and all of that. And the fact, as Pete mentioned, that China is building up now and building a interstate type highway system that we built back in the 50s that's sort of crumbling right now. So if we think it's bad now, when they finish building some of that highway system, the material cost increases and all that, and the fuel, you know, it's a tough challenge, a big challenge that we got to figure out. I want to introduce Bill Millar, and I think a lot of folks in here know. If you don't know Bill, then you haven't been around transit, I guess. Bill Millar is the president of the American Public Transportation Association, or APTA. Since coming to APTA in 1996, he has sought to expand APTA's reach and effectiveness, guiding it to legislative victories and dramatically increasing federal investment in public information. Mr. Millar is a strong supporter of transportation research and is the recipient of the Founding Father Award for his leadership in establishing the Transit Cooperative Research Program, or TCRP. Please give a Comto welcome to Bill Millar.
Good morning, all. All right, good to see you. Welcome to, let me add my welcome to Indianapolis as well. It's great to be back in this town, and it was fun to be with Gil Holmes. Gil, you haven't arrived here yet today. Oh, there you are. Let's give Gil a round of applause. What a great job. What a great job Gil has done with Indigo here, and I see Mike Terry, the interim new Gil, and we're very pleased to have you with us today. Maybe it'll become the new permanent Gil. Who knows? Who knows? I talked to the mayor, but I still don't know, something like that. And Shirley, always a pleasure to be with you, and you're always the queen, regardless of what the DNA may or may not say. Something about that. And Julie, I appreciate very much the invitation to be here. Somebody said to me this morning, are you going to get the real Bill Millar, one of these long rambling speeches that occasionally I do? And you're not going to get that because you're getting a 2-for-1 today. You get a little bit of me and you get a lot of Michael Towns, our chair, and I'll be introducing Michael to you in a few minutes. Now, Phil, you may not have read the small print on that award. You're not supposed to say you're the 2008 award winner yet until we get to San Diego, our expo, and then you can say it. But the truth is, second time in 5 years, and that's true, and Denver does a great job, and congratulations to you on that. Now, the other thing I've noticed about Phil, I've known him quite a long time, and if you ask Phil directly, point blank, before this year, where you're from, and you go on, he might, after a couple minutes, talk about the south side of Chicago. But for some reason, as the presidential election gets closer, he keeps talking about the south side of Chicago more. I don't understand why that is. He doesn't say anything about his linkage to Arizona. I don't understand this, but whatever, whatever. And to Roscoe Brown and the organizing committee and everything, it's what a good show you're putting on here and making us all feel so welcome. And Pete, I am depressed, but this is me depressed, so that's the best we can do. A lot of truth in what you say, and I think the central point to that message is we've got to work together. It's a great big world out there. America used to own that world all to itself, more or less, and we have lots of competition now, and our success is built on many things, but certainly building a first-class, multimodal, integrated public all kinds of transportation is part of that. And so we thank you, and we thank AASHTO for your leadership on these things. And, you know, Pete commented earlier, he had a grandmother in Cleveland. He thought that would work. Ricky's from Cleveland. I'm from a little town called Euclid, Ohio, one of the suburbs of Cleveland. So we got a gene pool thing going here. Now, I hadn't met Gina before, but I'm told that if we go back far enough in all our genes, we all come from the Rift Valley. So apparently I am your brothers and sisters, even if I don't look that way like that. So. Some of us just happen to come via Denmark and via Scotland and a few other places like that. One time I was addressing a group, and this was before the DNA days when they could confirm better your lineage, and it was a group that was very proud of its genealogy. And just like happened to Shirley and Julie, they had gathered some information about me and about my chair, and in front of 1,000 people, they were going to reveal where we all came from. Only trouble was they misspelled my name, and so they read this long lineage of where I came from. I ain't ever been to any of those places before at all. But you smile and you thank them, and it hangs on my wall somewhere, I'm sure. So I don't know. On the issue of lineage, APTA and Comto share many things in common, to be sure. And we've already mentioned that Shirley, your chair, Shirley has been our chair. I'm going to tell you more about Michael in a little bit, our current chair, but he's done many, many things inside Comto. Mr. Prince was mentioned earlier. By the way, when I said to you last night, how old are you, Bob? And you answered, I'm older than dirt. At that moment, the infield at the Speedway said, no, he's not as old as dirt. We're as old as dirt. I don't know what that's about either. But Bob serves as our chair of our scholarship foundation, and MP Carter out there has served on our executive committee, and the list goes on and on and on. So we do share many things in common, and we work hard together on many issues, and that's good. One of the real nice trends, I think, that's going on in Comto that I've observed under Shirley and Julie's leadership is you're broadening your horizons. I mean, I'm very proud that many Comto members work in public transportation, but I really think it's important that you move to other modes. So, Ricky, we're pleased about the airports, and Pete made comments about in the highway community, and the list goes on and on and on, and I think that's a great trend indeed. So there might be a few people out there who don't know much about APTA, and just the thumbnail sketch, we're the organization that represents the providers of public transportation in the U.S. and indeed some members from around the world. Over 1,500 members, many transit systems, many private sector businesses, and many other affiliated organizations. So if you're not an APTA member and you'd like to become an APTA member after you've paid your Comto dues, then I'd be glad to talk to you about that. On and on and on. We've got a full service program, and I'm not going to tell you the rest of that. Let me just take a moment or two just on where we are in the public transit industry right now. As Pete has indicated to you, for transportation, these are good times, bad times, confusing times, great times. There's lots of different ways to look at this time we're in. For me, as a transit guy, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. Yes, high gas prices bring a double-edged sword, to be sure. We surveyed our members recently. Our members told us that what they pay for fuel is up 166% in the last few years. On the other hand, our members also told us the ones who used electricity to power particularly their rail systems, that's only up by 19%. So I certainly don't want to pick on Leslie Rogers here or FTA's measures as we develop new projects. But again, I think the variety of projects we develop, when one thing's up, the other might be down, et cetera, that's the whole point, that we have a comprehensive system that works. And there'll be times when part of it isn't the best way, and times when the other part will be, and things of that sort. So it's a very, very interesting time. But the good part out of all this is we're seeing riders. We're seeing people on our buses, on our rail cars, who never thought they would be on public transportation. Last year, over 10.3 billion times Americans used public transportation. That's a modern record, to be sure, in that. But you know what category of ridership had the highest single growth last year? It wasn't light rail. It wasn't commuter rail. It wasn't the things that we think. The highest category as a percentage of growth last year was bus systems in communities of 100,000 or less. Now, how many people in this room run a bus system or are involved with a bus system that's real small like that? Anybody here? Yeah. If you have that size system, in most communities that size, that's a pretty small system. That's 15 buses, it might be 30. But it's not many buses. And so what that says to me, that Americans who thought they just had a small bus system for people who simply had no other choice, as that gas price has gone past $3, $3.50, $4 a gallon, transit has taken on a whole new meaning. And in fact, in the first quarter of this year, not only was it small systems like that, but the next size, the 100,000 to 500,000, that saw a big rise. Now, to be sure, light rail is growing dramatically. In fact, in the first quarter of this year, up over 10%. Commuter rail growing dramatically, almost 7%. And anecdotally, since April, double-digit growth. So it kind of goes on and on and on. And again, it shows that sometimes it's hard to prove exactly what the value of transit is, but when that future is uncertain, as we certainly face, that's one more thing on the plus side for why we ought to be investing in public transit. You never know when you're going to need it. Well, let me just finish up with one final comment, and then I'll introduce Mike. I made some reference to Comto and APTA working together, and Mike's going to talk more about that in detail. But again, we passed another milestone last year together. When Shirley was the chair of APTA, one of her goals was to develop a formal cooperation agreement between APTA and Comto, and that sort of put on paper the underlying relationship that we have, and that worked very well. That agreement expired, and again, as Shirley became chair of Comto, she and Julie approached us and said, let's revisit that agreement, let's see if we want to sign another one, and of course we both did, and of course we're both working together on things. So we continue to do great things together. Well, let me now turn and introduce to you Mike Towns. Michael Towns is the president and the CEO of the Hampton Roads transit system, but if I were to stop right there, that would be telling you about this much about a guy who's got this much in experience and involvement in transportation. Inside APTA, he has served not only as our chair, but as our first vice chair, as our vice chair for administration and finance, for our vice chair for government affairs. He's headed up our legislative committee. He's gone through the chairs inside APTA. But in other transportation organizations, same thing. He's served on your board of directors at least twice. He's been your legislative chair. He's been the legislative chair of the Virginia Transit Association. He's been appointed to serve on the Commonwealth of Virginia Commission on Climate Change. He's on Virginia's High-Speed Rail Development Commission, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. Michael shares my interest in research and is a past chair of the Transportation Research Board. He also serves as the chair of FTA's, the Oversight Committee on their research program, the Transit Research Advisory Committee. And so he is a man who has been deeply involved in this industry, deeply involved in your organization, my organization, for a long time. Please join me in welcoming Michael Towns.
It is truly wonderful to be here, to be with Shirley, and to be with Julie, and to be with all the Comto members. But I do want to take a minute and salute Gil Holmes, my friend Gil Holmes. In a few minutes, I'll be talking about Transit Vision 2050, APTA's visioning effort for the future of our industry. But I wanted to mention now that Gil provided significant leadership for this effort. This is just the most recent of Gil's many positive contributions to the transit industry. Gil chaired, in this effort, one of the committees that drove the development of Transit 2050. He took the lead of the committee which dealt with quality of life issues and once again provided proven leadership and has helped advance this important effort. Now, as Gil moves into the next phase of his life, I hope that he finds a way to continue providing that proven leadership to our industry because, simply put, our industry, transit and transportation, won't be the same without you, Gil. So don't leave us, brother. I also have to say happy birthday, Prince, my role model. Now, Bill, who is hard to follow, did highlight some of APTA and Comto's mutual interests, but let me talk about a few more of those. Our priority that APTA and Comto share is the issue of workforce development, one of our priorities. And Julie Cunningham was a key presenter in our first online meeting on succession planning and served as a chat line expert for people writing in. She also speaks every year before our leadership APTA class, helping to prepare the next generation of transit leaders. And she has served on APTA's Diversity Council for many years. She and I have served together on that, and she brings great insights and direction to that group. She shares her expertise with APTA, and we try to share what little we have with Comto. For example, APTA has a seat on Comto's Academic Advisory Council, which generates support for Comto programs within institutions of higher learning, particularly university transportation centers. The council also works to increase the participation of graduate students in Comto. Another Comto priority is helping underutilized businesses become more successful. Comto and APTA share this interest, and we do things to address it. For instance, at APTA's annual meeting, we always co-host a disadvantaged business enterprise networking program and reception. And Julie, I really look forward to you coming to Hampton Roads in November for a hub historically underutilized business conference that will take place there. In addition, we reach out to businesses used by the local transit system in whatever city we're in, and we invite their participation. APTA's Business Members Board of Governors has a special committee to convince our small business members to become more involved in APTA and to help them make more business connections. At APTA's Expo, held every 3 years, we have established goals to achieve a 10% increase in the number of DBE companies exhibiting over the previous show. So I'm happy to announce that with just 3 months to go, we've already exceeded our goal, as 61 DBEs have already signed up, and we're looking for more. But as they say, wait, there is more. APTA supports the local DC chapter of Comto, and many staff are also members of Comto, APTA staff. In fact, I'm proud to say that one of APTA's very own staff, Christy Dawson, is the immediate past chair of the DC chapter and the DC chapter president of Comto. Now, I can report on yet another collaboration between Comto, and that's on research funded by the Transport Cooperative Research Program, or TCRP, that you heard Bill and others talk about, that we've been so committed to for the past almost 2 decades now. We are very grateful to Comto for helping add what we call ambassadors to the mix on behalf of the TCRP. These ambassadors work hard to fulfill their purpose, which is to be the young industry professionals that help disseminate research results to many others in the industry. In fact, I have a young man on my staff who is an ambassador through Comto for TCRP. And right now we're looking at the best way to engage Comto chapters, and we all know that Comto is a chapter-based organization, and the chapters are very strong in and of themselves. We want to engage these chapters in moving forward with the Ambassador Initiative and other cooperative initiatives between Comto and APTA. Now, speaking of moving forward, you heard Pete talk about the absolutely scary situation that we're facing in this nation as it relates to investment on infrastructure and transportation. And as APTA's chair, I've been working on and will continue to work on 2 major initiatives focused on this very issue. One is the next authorization, and the other is APTA's visioning effort, which we've called Transit Vision 2050. So regarding authorization, need I remind you that Safety Lou expires on September the 30th, 2009. And add to this deadline the fact that we will have a new Congress and a new president to work with, let alone to get to know, and you can see that our work is cut out for us to craft a strong, clear, commanding set of recommendations so that we might spur some of that leadership that you say that we need. We can't just sit back and hope that it happens. We have to work to try to make it happen. And we're working hard to prepare our industry's positions through the combined efforts of APTA's Legislative Committee, which is ably chaired by Bill Volk, and our Authorization Task Force, which is co-chaired by John Cato and Stephanie Negriff and Alan Wilkin. Now, these are names that are well known in the transit industry. Many of you all who are not in the transit industry don't know these folks, but John Cato runs Washington Metro. Stephanie Negriff runs the Big Blue Bus, which serves Santa Monica, California, both very strong Comto members. And Alan Wilkin is a senior vice president with InfraConsult. Now, this group has worked diligently since it first convened last November, and we hope this authorization bill will be the first step towards achieving our vision for the future, which is why we are charting a bold course for both the upcoming authorization process and the years ahead. So in that light, my other key initiative as chair is Transit Vision 2050, which is APTA's visioning effort. Now, through Transit Vision 2050, we're trying to answer such questions as, what does the future hold? What role will public transportation play in the decades ahead? What does APTA need to do to pursue its long-term vision? We now have a new draft of the Transit Vision 2050 report that will help us shape our future, and it's compelling. And Bill, I don't know if you bought any copies of it, but maybe we can get that pamphlet out. You know, if you don't get a copy of it, what I would suggest to you is to go online to www.apta.com, and when you come up on the opening page, you'll see up on the right-hand corner there's a big button that says Transit Vision 2050. Click on that button and go back there, and you'll find a tremendous amount of information. You'll see the 3 webinars that we streamed. You'll be able to witness those. You'll be able to blog, to chat, to put your ideas in about what the future holds, to give Comto's vision on where this industry should go or attempt to go. Now, our goal is to have a final vision ready to be approved when APTA meets at our annual meeting and exposition, which will take place in San Diego this coming October the 5th through the 8th. And we want to get that vision together so it can help spur our industry forward and to inform our efforts on reauthorization. There's another component to our visioning effort that is kind of focused on the internal workings of APTA. And it's intended to decide how APTA should evolve and what its purpose will be and who it will represent and what its committee structure should look like going forward. To do this, we have formed a group that we've called the Framework for the Future Task Force, and it has 3 fine co-chairs, all past chairs of APTA, and they are John B. Bertosowitz of McDonald Transit Associates, George F. Big Daddy Dixon III of Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, and Les R. White of the Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District. Now, they've taken on the critical issues of how APTA should be structured, what its committee structure should be like, who it should seek to represent, who's under the tent, and will report their recommendations back to the APTA Executive Committee also in October for action at our executive retreat in November. And let me reiterate, while all of these initiatives are my initiatives, they're not just my focus. They're the focus of the transit industry and the transportation industry, indeed, as a broad group, because working together, we'll continue to make transportation and public transit not only part of the national conversation, but we need to get it on that national agenda so we can get those leaders working to move the issue forward. And we need to move that issue forward for today and tomorrow. Our generation can't leave a broken legacy to my children and grandchildren. We need to leave the legacy that our parents left for us. As Pete said, the world's greatest transportation system that we are letting crumble. We need to do something about it, and we need to do something about it by working together. Now, I realize that the year 2050 seems far away, but if our industry is to make a difference for this generation, for the next generation, and the nation as a whole, we must work now to bring our collective vision to the forefront and to make public transit a true talking point in the very critical years to follow. Our collective strength and knowledge and zeal for the future of public transit have made us a force to be reckoned with. Let me just say, let's keep up the energy and let's move forward together. Let's get that leadership going. Lastly, I hope you all enjoy your stay in this wonderful city of Indianapolis. I hope you gain valuable knowledge to take back home. Julie was kind of lamenting when we first came in the room that it wasn't as full as it is now, and I said that's because when we get together as Comto, we network, and we network all night long. So it takes us a little while to get here in the morning. All right, but we're all here now. Keep up the good work, okay?
And before I make the next introduction, I know Pete Ron may have to step out And so if you see him stepping out, I know he has a flight that he has to catch. Okay, why don't you do that right now?
I'm sorry, if I may. I just, I was going to wait till the end because Pete is a very passionate person, but he's also very modest and a very humble man. And I just want to say that we asked him to keep his remarks brief, but they were briefer than I really expected. But I want to say this about Pete Ron. If I can be so bold as to tell the story about the drive-by shooting, can I? Can I tell the story about the drive-by shooting? Everybody's looking. Pete has committed, and the whole MoDOT team has committed to increasing the number of women, minorities, and economically disadvantaged on state highway, heavy highway, and bridge projects in the state of Missouri. And so they came out with some out-of-the-box kinds of things. And when he talked about the community at large coming together, it was the unions, the faith-based organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League, the contractors, the primes. And so you imagine putting all those groups down at one table and getting them to come up with one MOU that was 2 pages or less, and everybody signed it, okay? That's what happened in Missouri. Well, as we got moving on the I-64 expansion, the numbers were looking bleak. And he literally put on his hard hat and went out to the project and said, we will meet these numbers. And so they call it the drive-by shooting because he was in people's faces. I just want to, having Ashto here is a big deal. Lester Woods, is going to be part of the upcoming leadership team. And so to have Pete here to support Lester serving on our board of directors, to have awarded Comto a contract to ensure that these things occur in the state of Missouri is a big thing. And I just want us to appreciate the man that is sitting here and all that he is doing to do what we do, what we're all about. And I just want to thank you for being here.
Loretta Kirk. Everybody knows Loretta. Loretta is the Deputy General Manager of Finance and Administration and the Chief Financial Officer for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. Loretta has been a Comto member for 28 years, 28 great years of dedication and support for the cause of Comto and the objectives of Comto. She served as the National Chair from 2002 to 2006, and she currently serves on the National Board as the immediate past National Chair. So please welcome Loretta Kirk to the podium.
Good morning, Comto. Good morning. Phil earlier said he wanted to talk a little trash, and I want to talk a little trash too. All right. Because he said he's going to be named the North America's Best Transit System in October again. And I just want him to know that Cleveland is currently North America's bus transportation system. And I know how to follow directions because we're going to get another award in October, but we'll wait based on Bill Millar's instruction. I have the great honor this morning of introducing you to our keynote speaker, the Federal Transit Administrator for Region 9, Leslie T. Rogers. Headquartered in San Francisco, Region 9 is comprised of the states of California, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, and the territories of Guam, America Samoa, and the Northern Marianas. Mr. Rogers' responsibilities also include a satellite office in Los Angeles, which provides the planning, grant-making, and project management for the delivery of the FTA program in Region 9 that annually exceeds $1.4 billion. The transportation program portfolio that he manages annually is in excess of $8 billion. Leslie Rogers has served as the Region 9 Administrator since 1996. And in 2000, he became a member of the Federal Senior Executive Services. And I think that means he makes a lot of money. Well, he has a high ranking in the government. He's been with FTA for 29 years and held several positions in FTA prior to his current position, including Deputy Administrator for Region 9, Staff Attorney for the Office of the Chief Counsel in Washington, D.C., and Regional Counsel in the Denver and New York City regional offices. Many of us have known Leslie for years. He is a longtime member and supporter of Comto, and he consistently attends Comto's annual conference, as well as the programs that we hold throughout the year and throughout the country. And he's also a recipient of North California's chapter's 2005 Employee of the Year Award. Now, Leslie is a special person. He's an amazing person, and he's a great friend. And once you get to know him, you think that there's no one else like him. But I have to tell you, in December 2005, when we went to Montgomery, Alabama, which is his home, so we know we can trace his roots back to Alabama. We were there to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott. And for a while, we thought we were seeing doubles, because there's another one. He has an identical twin, Lester, and he's just like him. He's an amazing person also. Comto, please help me welcome to the podium Leslie T. Rogers.
Thank you, Loretta, and good morning, Comto. And yes, my brother, he thinks he has the better looks, but I know I have the higher intellect, so. Good morning. On behalf of Transportation Secretary Mary Peters and FTA Administrator Jim Simpson, who really was supposed to be the keynote speaker, I extend to you their warmest regards and congratulations to the leaders and all the dedicated members of Comto for your efforts to sustain this remarkable organization for more than 3 decades. I almost feel like this, for me, is somewhat like Cheers, the TV show. You want to go where everybody knows your name. And I don't know everybody here, but I know a good number of people, and those I don't, I hope to meet before I leave tomorrow. I am especially appreciative and thankful to Julie Cunningham for a few days ago when the administrator got the call from the secretary that he needed to be with her today and extended his sincere regrets for his inability to join with us. It was Julie who suggested, well, and they were going through any number of scenarios as to how he might appear in other parts of the program or whatever, but none of them worked. But then Julie said, well, why don't you send Leslie? And my God, I thought I was just coming to sit in the back of the room and attend the conference. I've actually had to be semi-responsible and get to bed before 2 o'clock. But God works in mysterious ways because my performance appraisal is coming up in 2 weeks. And so thank you, Julie. But sincerely, since its inception in 1971, Comto has done so much to open so many doors for thousands of individuals working in all segments of the transportation industry, and to create a brighter future for generations of young people seeking career opportunities in this rewarding field. And Comto truly is about the business of building up the people who build America. Now, as a graduate of the Howard University Law School, I am especially proud of the university's role as Comto's birthplace. I also am proud to share a common bond with Comto co-founder, Mr. Harold Williams, who, like me, is a native of Montgomery, Alabama, and who served as a mentor to me when I first came to UMTA those many, many years ago. I have spent virtually my entire career in public transportation, but for me, it was almost preordained.
My father drove what they call the colored cabs during the Montgomery bus boycott, when black people refused no longer to sit at the back of the buses and demanded the full realization of the American dream. And my story truly is the embodiment of the American dream. But where else in this great country, but for this great country, could a poor black kid whose parents had to sit at the back of the bus, work hard, get a job, and eventually lead an office where I control $1 billion a year that impacts the decisions as to whether the buses are purchased or whether they run? I know I serve a powerful God. And on a personal note, I have been blessed throughout my career at the FTA. What an honor to work for former Transportation Secretary Rodney Slater and Norm Mineta, and have a direct boss like former FTA Administrator and mentor Gordon Linton. I've also been blessed to work with real luminaries in this industry, like Shirley DeLibrio when I was in the New York office and she was in New Jersey, working with Dr. Bev Scott, who you heard yesterday doing her tenure at Sacramento, and John Cato, currently at WMATA when he was in LA, and my good friend Michael Oglesby, currently at Sunline. So indeed, it has been a fun and exciting ride. Now, where transit is concerned, you can really see and hear, and I do mean hear, the benefits delivered to so many Americans. And any of you who have never heard just how loudly the gears grind and the bells clang on a San Francisco cable car, I invite you to come and visit anytime, but just bring a jacket. Now, as you know, rising gas prices have encouraged many Americans to give transit a first or perhaps second look. As you've heard right here in Indianapolis, under the leadership of Gil Holmes, bus ridership has increased tremendously and dramatically over the last year and the last few months. And of course, that's really happening all across the nation. No doubt about it. This is truly an exciting time for public transportation. And Bill Millar has been saying that for the last 20 years. So I don't know, this must be really dynamic times, but Bill's message has been consistent. New opportunities arise around us every day to show the nation that the folks working behind the scenes, the drivers, pilots, maintenance mechanics, planners, shift supervisors, engineers, general managers, and so on, are truly a very dedicated and committed, hard-working bunch of folks. And of course, opportunities also bring challenges, and we know we've got plenty of those. Fuel prices are putting transit operators in a real bind, and there's only so much you can do to pass these costs on to your riders. And right now, most transit agencies are trying to figure out how to keep their buses, rail cars, stations, and other assets in a state of good repair while still continuing to meet the growing demands for increased service. And if there was ever a time for some really smart, enthusiastic people to get into this business, to find new ways of looking at old problems and new ways of looking at new problems too, then now is indeed the time. FTA has a proud tradition of encouraging young professionals to enter the transportation field. And that's why the FTA Administrator, Jim Simpson, has been working directly with Julie and the Comto staff to fund and establish Comto's Careers in Transportation for Youth program, known as CITY. In its first year, this CITY program attracted an extremely exceptional and talented group of young students from diverse backgrounds who worked as interns at FTA's headquarters, in public transit agencies across the country, and also in the private sector. And thanks to the hands-on experience gained through this program, several of these young folks have landed full-time jobs with some of the nation's leading contractors. This year, FTA is proud to have funded 9 interns working in Washington, D.C., Houston, and New York City. 2 of them from FTA's headquarters are with us today. Lucy Marcus works in FTA's Office of Research as well as our Office of Civil Rights. And Mac Foster also works in FTA's Office of Research and also in the Planning and Environment Office. Lucy and Mac, would you please stand? Thank you. And you know, as the basketball superstar Wilt Chamberlain once said, you know, when you play with the best, you also have to play your best. And I know that Lucy, Mac, and all of our other interns this year are indeed at the top of their game and on the road to success. And as a further sign of FTA's faith in this program, I am pleased to announce today that we will soon sign a cooperative agreement with Comto for $100,000 to continue funding for this program in 2009. I'm also proud of FTA's role in supporting the Transit Cooperative Research Program, TCRP, in conjunction with Comto, APTA, and the Community Transportation Association of America. And one of the terrific things that TCRP does is to tap talented transportation professionals who are already well established in their careers to serve as ambassadors who share their experience and expertise with transit agencies around the country. And after all, nobody has a monopoly on good ideas, and we all have so much to learn from each other and about how we provide the best transportation solutions for keeping Americans mobile and our economy moving. Clearly, we are committed to the various highest standards when it comes to developing human capital for our agency and for the transportation industry in general. And the same can also be said for another side of our business, and that's our major capital project oversight. We believe it's imperative that we maintain high standards to ensure the delivery of quality construction, and that taxpayers' dollars are always wisely spent. FTA is currently in the process of soliciting proposals for oversight contractors who typically provide essential oversight services on our major capital transit projects. And yes, our proposed best value approach is a bit controversial and has not received unanimous support. But we expect our efforts this time around will help us broaden the range of firms eligible to support FTA's oversight program. Specifically, we expect to increase the range of firms available to provide FTA with this specialized expertise in rail and busway construction methods, standards, management, and among other things. In addition, we believe, and more importantly, we will expand the opportunities for many smaller firms and companies interested in doing business with FTA. Our goal, in fact, is to increase small business participation to at least 20% of the total program effort. And we look forward to receiving proposals that represent the same high caliber of professional support services that we have relied on over the course of this very important agency program. And I encourage those firms interested in competing and applying for this program to join FTA and attend a pre-solicitation conference at our headquarters in Washington, D.C. on July 21st. More information about this program and this re-solicitation effort is available on our website. If I could, I'd like to briefly switch gears and share with you some of the policy priorities and fiscal challenges that must be addressed to ensure a bright future for our nation's public transportation infrastructure. And whether we like it or not, the plain truth is that essentially we've reached a tipping point in public transportation. And if we don't identify sustainable funding sources to preserve our rapidly aging legacy bus, rail, ferry, trolley systems, and provide for the future maintenance for new construction, then we really are doing a real disservice to future generations. By identifying reliable sources for funding for all types of capital transportation projects, whether in aviation, waterborne, or surface transit, this is an enormously challenging and daunting task, especially as communities and construction costs continue to escalate, and as traditional sources of federal revenues like the Highway Trust Fund steadily decrease. That's why we're actively encouraging public-private partnerships on our major capital transit projects. Phil and the folks in Denver have a project underway that we're working with. And also my friend Tom Parker from BART, we're working with the Oakland Airport Connector project that is a design, build, finance, maintain, and operate project. And now we know that this approach has worked well for highway capital construction projects, so we're going to try it on the transit side. And in fact, we believe it actually may be the wave of the future. And under these public-private partnerships, PPPs, the goal is for public entities that sponsor capitally intensive transit projects to contract with private partners to design, construct, finance, operate, and maintain these transit facilities. These arrangements, we believe, offer many potential advantages by supplementing public funding with private equity and debt. That is, transferring long-term financial risks to the private sector, and perhaps speeding up project construction and delivery, which in turn may reduce costs on some of these transit projects. And we're particularly encouraged by many early signs of success, notably in Minnesota and New Jersey and elsewhere, where private resources were instrumental in ensuring that ambitious new rail systems got up and running. FTA is also investing in these PPP programs, as I mentioned, in Houston, Oakland, and Denver. And we're watching closely to see how they will actually perform. And by the way, FTA will be hosting 3 upcoming workshops. We recently completed one in mid-June in Denver. Our next one will be July 31st in San Francisco, followed by one in Philadelphia on September 18th, and in Dallas, Texas on October 23rd. And I invite all of you to join us at any of these meetings. The firm of Ernst & Young have said that public-private partnerships are here to stay and may well be the only viable way for governments to reach their infrastructure development goals amid state and local budget deficits. And I can tell you from California, this is a daunting task. We are facing a state budget deficit there approaching $17 billion. And I was mindful when Pete talked about all those calamities that they had in Missouri this spring. We have all that in California in a week. And if you visit California, you will quickly learn that there are 2 stories that lead the news every day. It's either weather or traffic. Now, speaking of infrastructure, I mentioned earlier the challenge of keeping our transportation systems in a state of good repair. And FTA, we take this issue very seriously. And we're committed to working with the industry to find new ways to measure and track what it really means to attain a state of good repair. We're also scrutinizing very carefully the ability of our capital program grantees to address this issue through our grant-making process. And on August the 13th and 14th, the FTA administrator will convene a State of Good Repair Summit in Washington, D.C. with representatives of 13 transit agencies from around the country to help us address and better understand this very critical issue. Investing, and perhaps more importantly, reinvesting in our nation's transportation infrastructure is truly one of the most difficult challenges facing our country today. It's costly, it's time-consuming, and it takes enormous political will and commitment at all the federal, state, and local levels. And yet, we cannot afford to ignore it, or worse, let it fail. Transportation, as we all know, truly is the circulatory system of our economy. One of every $7 in the U.S. economy is directly attributable to transportation. Now more than ever, we need leaders willing to take tough and courageous decisions about how and what it will take to really build and sustain a world-class transportation infrastructure to keep our economy moving. So help us as we go forward in reauthorization. We welcome all proposals. We welcome your input in helping us better understand the Lieberman-Warner cap-and-trade provisions in that Senate legislation. Should we move to trying to move from the flat excise tax on the gas to perhaps vehicle miles travel, and how we might expand private equity enhancements for the transit program. We need market-based solutions as well as government leadership. And above all, we need individuals with the passion, energy, and drive to bring this industry into the 21st century and beyond. So let us all pledge that we're going to work together, government, transit operators, labor, and the business community, to find ways to indeed make our transportation system better, to make these systems sustainable, and ensure that we can effectively compete in the global economy. And I'd like to close with an inspiring thought from General Colin Powell, who said, quote, "A dream doesn't become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work." And I think that's something we can all take to heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. Great remarks. I was just sitting there thinking, Leslie was talking about the passion and energy and drive of leaders. And I think Mike Towns talked about a new Congress coming in, a new administration. I got to thinking, and I know Comto is working on this, position points, a paper that we can give to that administration to say, hey, these are our top 6 points. We may not get all of them done, but these are our top 6 points or whatever. Maybe we can get 3 or 4 of them done and push that along, push that agenda along. I see a resume book of the great leaders within Comto, and that resume book based on core competencies and qualities in individuals being given to the new administration on a disc, multimodal, men and women. We've got some great folks in Comto, and we need to push that forward. And I just sat there and was thinking about that, and I would love to help with that effort. I think that could be one of the great roles out there, being out front and aggressive. I hope today has been a great start to the morning. I want to thank all of our speakers on the dais. I want to thank again Gil Holmes and Roscoe Brown, our host. I want to remind everyone that today at 1:45, Dr. Soares, remember, will be speaking again. And if you missed him yesterday, what was it, yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, he'll be back this afternoon. And he talked, I mean, you got to listen to this brother. And I mean, he talked about walking in the hotel and seeing the Pullman sign, and he preached a sermon just with that. Now, I think he had some of that in his hip pocket before he came in here. But, you know, because the brother broke it all the way down and creating the message, walking in this hotel, you know, we got to check that out. But please also visit the exhibit hall. Lunch will be served down there, so definitely go down there and support the businesses down there. With that, are there any alibis from the podium? Julie, Shirley? and the workshops. Don't forget those this afternoon. Or this morning, I'm sorry, I'm all messed up. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.